Kevin Gordon here from Autosavant.com with your June 19th edition of the Afternoon Commute. There was no afternoon commute yesterday as a result of the fact that we drove, both Eric and I drove up to Boston and back in a day. So in the process, we started the morning in the Lexus GS350, went and traded in for this Audi A6, which is optioned with some of the big ticket items and some really interesting pieces. We'll be talking a little bit more about the car in a multi-part review, and back in a day. So from Philadelphia to Boston and back in a day. The Audi was a really willing partner for that kind of trip. I think the most impressive part was we averaged 28 miles per gallon on a trip where our computed average speed was, let's put it this way, well north of 60 miles an hour, which means, the car was not being driven gingerly and still returned a really big mile per gallon number. We talk about the Lexus versus the Audi, you get out of one, get into the other. There's definite pluses and minuses, but one thing I can tell you is the seats that are in that Lexus are magic. They really might be. And the seats in the Audi aren't bad, but you don't realize how good those seats really are until you get in here and spend some time. So to start out the afternoon commute, I have a couple of questions for you. Starting with, are you excited about, again, having the chance to own a rear-wheel drive Chevrolet sedan? Well, if you are, the 2013 Daytona 500 in February of next year should be an exciting day for you, because that is the time that Chevrolet will be launching the new SS Performance sedan. Next question for you. What car, if you option it with its base engine, is basically half as expensive as if you option it with its highest end engine? Now, believe it or not, there's multiple answers to that question, but the one we have in mind is the 2013 Audi A8, the bigger car than this one. If you get that with this engine, although it makes a few more horsepower than is this car, it's the 333 horsepower version of the 3-liter supercharged engine. If you get that car, it is $73,000, I believe. If you get it with the W12 engine, the big 12, two V6s tied together in the heads, I suppose you could say, that car is $138,000. So not quite twice as expensive, but pretty darn close. It's kind of amazing that there's at least a $70,000 price difference in between, engine choices. And despite the W12 being a big, powerful, engine for that car, it's not like it's the S8. It's not like you've gone to the BMW M line of the 7 Series, which we'll see if it comes around, or the AMG version of the S-Class. It's just the bigger engine choice in the States can almost double the price of that car. Amazing. And now for something I'm really excited about. This weekend was the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and Audi swept the podium. Sorry, I didn't give you a spoiler alert ahead of time for that one, but I'm assuming if you're watching the afternoon commute, you already know that. That's exciting in and of itself. The race wasn't super exciting because Audi was really pretty dominant. There was a really spectacular crash, and at the 6-hour mark, the Delta wing Nissan crashed out, and its driver did a heroic job of trying to get it back on track, but that never happened. But the reason I'm talking about the 24 Hours Le Mans, and the reason why I'm so excited about that, is if you remember a few months ago, I talked about my suggestion on how to fix Formula One. And that was to limit the amount of fuel the cars got and start to unrestrict all the other portions of them to allow some technology to trickle back down to the consumer. Well, the organizers of the 24 Hours of Le Mans for 2014 are basically doing just that. They're going to severely deregulate the engines and limit the energy allotment, as they're calling it, for the cars. So instead of saying for the whole race you get X amount of fuel, what they're doing is per lap you get X amount of either gasoline or diesel. They're also making the fuel tanks smaller in all the cars to, once again, benefit people and get better fuel economy out of their cars for less fueling pit stops. And finally, they're limiting the use, or excluding the use of ultra exotic materials. So, James Cameron and his horribly named unobtainium, there'll be no unobtainium in the Le Mans cars starting in 2014. That is the greatest news in racing I've heard in a really long time. That's what I want my automotive racing to be, is one, a true test between manufacturers and not some spec series nonsense. I mean, in all honesty, as much as it pains me to say it, it's what's happened to Formula One with these tires that degrade so quickly and all the rules. Sure, they've made it competitive, but nobody can go out there and innovate and think, and bend the rules and come up with a car that's better than everybody else. Well, it looks like, Le Mans and endurance racing in the LMP classes is going to be the place for that. I'm really looking forward to it. Next up today, one of those things that you wish had never, ever, ever come out in rumors, and it just sort of hit and was really surprising. Polestar, the performance tuning house in Sweden, which primarily works on Volvos, and you can go take your Volvo back to the dealership and get Polestar upgrades. Our own Kevin Miller is driving a Polestar car this week, so stay tuned for his impressions on that. Well, they released a one-off, it was supposedly built for a customer, a one-off S60, and doing this from memory, so forgive me if I get it wrong, but it makes 506 horsepower and I think 422 foot-pounds of torque, although I'm really not sure on that number. It's all-wheel drive and has a 6-speed manual. I mean, it is a tuning house special to go compete with all the other cars that are in that segment. And it would be really awesome if Volvo built this thing. It would be nice for them to have a car that gets into all the comparos with, the AMG Mercedes and the M-Class BMWs. Will it happen? We shall see. I think it's all going to depend on how the public reacts to their prototype, quote unquote, their one-off, build for this thing, and if the reaction's good in the public or not. And finally for today, Toyota is on fire recently. Oh wait, no, I read that wrong. Toyotas are on fire recently. Toyota, I don't know if somebody's out to get them, if there's some kind of conspiracy man or something, but they're recalling 1.4 million vehicles for, I believe, the window master switch is catching on fire. There's been like 160 accidents, a few injuries, so they're doing another massive recall to bring all the cars back and fix them. Is it going to hurt their image? I don't really think so at this point. Amazingly, the general public, despite all these things, even unintended acceleration and that whole thing, is sort of faded into people's memories. It's sort of like when we talked about gas prices last week. People have short memories, and if what you're doing today works well, they seem to be okay with it. So that's what we had for today. Stay tuned. Tonight we'll be putting up a product review on something we've been using on a long-term test truck. Came out as a nice little piece of video, I think, although the sound, still working on tweaking some of that stuff. This week we'll try to get a full set of commutes in, get a lot of impressions of the Audi A6. We actually have it to specifically review the $5,900 Bang & Olufsen stereo that's in this car. I'm also going to go through and do a video walkthrough of the tech and some of the driving impressions of it as we go there. As usual, I'm Kevin Gordon from AutoSavant.com, and I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow.